Hello everyone, welcome back to your Digital Marketing Gyaan Podcast, your go-to source for the latest insights, strategies and stories in the digital marketing world. I am Prince Kumar, your host, and today we have a very special guest joining us. Paul Banks is the founder of Javelin Content Management. With expertise in video marketing, content repurposing and AI, Paul focuses on helping businesses build trust and scale engagement through the power of video. His journey from corporate life to entrepreneurship as an ADHD business owner and father brings a unique and relatable perspective to the table. He is here to share his knowledge on the power of personal branding through LinkedIn video. We are excited to learn from his experience and insight today. Hi Paul, a warm welcome on our show.
Hello, thanks for having me. Privileged to be here, thank you.
So Paul, can we start with a bit of introduction about yourself and about your corporate journey?
So I once upon a time studied software engineering at school, at university, and I always wanted to be a web developer. This is way back before web development courses were even a thing. So I left university and then tried to get a job in web development, and at the same time the dot-com bubble burst. And so there were no jobs in web development, and I ended up working in retail. And I think I spent 15 years in retail from one end of it to the other, and I heavily recommend working there to anybody who doesn't really know what they want to do with their life, because I got to experience all sorts of different roles and challenges and learning about leadership and lots of other really interesting things. But after sort of 5 years, I also became a volunteer police officer. I spent 10 years doing that, and again in lots of different roles throughout the police force. After kind of 2020, the beginning of 2020, I was fortunate enough to be talking with somebody on LinkedIn. We got to know each other a little better, and eventually 6 weeks later I started working at an AI consultancy, an AI SaaS startup, as their retail go-to-market expert. And hands on heart, I didn't even know what B2B meant at that point in time. I'd lived my entire life helping people buy cucumbers and tomatoes, and all of a sudden I'm thrown into selling conversation analytics and really complex technologies into big contact centers, into the enterprise world, and found myself kind of cold calling and cold emailing CEOs and directors and heads of, and realizing that nobody really wants to deal with cold outreach. Nobody wants a cold call. Nobody wants to have sales thrust on them. And for me, with no sales or marketing background, I was really struggling for how to have the conversations. I'm really confident when I get in front of people. I like stories, and I'm really good at telling a story of how we got where we are. And as a startup, that's the biggest asset you have, is your narrative, your story of why you are doing what you do. But having those conversations and getting to have those meetings with people was really hard, because people need to trust you and be aware of you before they'll have a meeting. And that's where we came down to content, and video content particularly, because with senior leaders especially, they want to do a lot of research themselves. They want to understand who you are, what you can do, how you can help them before they'll even entertain having that meeting. And I had a CEO who's very experienced, very polarizing, who worked in the industry for quite a long time. And so I started to leverage his experience on my own LinkedIn feed and take a podcast that we had recorded of him, chop it up into content and start getting it out through my feed. And it worked really well. I was managing 4 LinkedIn accounts. People were coming to us all the time saying, we now know who you are. We'd love to have conversations. The pipeline started to fill quite nicely. We were building a lot of network and genuine relationships with people. And around about 18 months after this all started off, we were at a conference, and I'd gone to the loo, right? So it's a 15-minute walk to the toilets from our booth, right? We're right at the back of the conference centre. And I came back to the booth, and my CEO stood there, he's spitting feathers, he's furious. Like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's happened? I've only been away like 15 minutes. I've come back. He went, well, you know that company that we've been trying to speak to? Yeah. Well, one of their directors have just been over. Right? Good. That's nice. He's like, yeah, but they didn't want to speak to me. They want to speak to you because you're the Banksy of LinkedIn. And what I hadn't realised had happened was I'd inadvertently become the face of the business, and we were getting known by all sorts of other companies because of the work we were doing with video and chopping it into smaller content where they'd take some, 2-3 minutes of their time to listen to what was being said. And eventually, so this is how I started Javelin Content. Eventually I said, look, this is great, but we're selling a very expensive product, a very technical product to a very senior audience. I reckon I can go away and make a business for myself doing this with more transactional services and a wider target audience, and do really well and help other businesses. And that's where I came to meet you, Prince, is I have a deep love, more than my own businesses. My deep love is to help other business owners make better decisions with their content marketing, with their social media, so that they can leverage the knowledge and experience that I've gained to make themselves successful.
Amazing. But definitely, like, video marketing is the need of the hour. And if you are helping the businesses owners to understand its true potential, then that can be, that will be definitely giving a lot of good result for the clients out. Since you have been focusing more on LinkedIn, what is the reason behind it? Like, why do you think that LinkedIn is the ideal platform for personal branding?
I think there's a few different reasons I focus on LinkedIn, right? And I'll start off with the common myth, first of all, that I hear people say all the time is my clients, my ideal clients and my target audience aren't on LinkedIn. I've got a niche audience, they don't exist on LinkedIn, right? First up, for 99.9% of all industries and all target audience, that's crap. They're there, you just haven't caught their attention. Or maybe you have and you don't realise that you have, because it's not always immediately obvious. So I'm a big believer that, like, I know a guy on LinkedIn who does incredibly well for himself there, and he's a scaffolding architect, right? He's super niche. There must be a handful of companies globally that he works with, and he does really well for himself. If he can do it and I can do it, then you can do it. LinkedIn is by far the biggest platform for reaching other business users. And I think now more than ever, it's easier to stand out on LinkedIn in the advent of AI. Not because you can use AI to do it, but because everybody else is using AI and abusing it and using it really badly and sending really terrible pitch messages and automating all of their actions and not leaving anything to personal use. And somebody who's willing to get on camera, look people in the whites of their eyes and show that you believe in what you're saying. AI, you can create AI videos, they can probably mimic some of the things that you do. You can tell it's AI still, right? Well, we're a long way away from AI being able to do what I'm doing right now, which is to sit in front of you and tell you a narrative and tell you a story and help add value. So first up, that's why I focus on LinkedIn. And more than that, I think now is a time, now that LinkedIn's brought in their vertical video feed, we've had the live stream now for a few years, audio events even are still quite big and quite useful. It's clear that LinkedIn are pushing video to the next level themselves. And I don't think there's ever been an opportunity since the early days of LinkedIn to grow as fast organically in your following, reach and network as there is now. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough, but it's got to be, again, as well as the AI stuff, pretty much everybody follows the business repost route, right? What I call the business reposters. So they'll have a marketing team within their business. Maybe it's just one person and they put out a business post on their business LinkedIn page, and the senior leadership all repost that article to their own feed. Boring. It's built for a LinkedIn business brand. It's not built for your brand. It doesn't tell anything about you. And people want to understand the people behind a business. If I'm going to spend a lot of money with someone, I want to know that their leadership team believe in me as a person and understand me as a person. And if I've got a choice between two products, and one, I know their leadership team and I like what they stand for, and the other business I know nothing about, I'm going to go with this person and this brand, even if it's more expensive. and the stats buy that out across all the social media platforms. So I think it's really easy for people to stand out from the crowd on LinkedIn right now, more than ever, but double that down with the respect and authority that video can help bring you, and you're onto a winner. So I'm where I am now. I'm nearly 2 years into my business now. I've never paid for an advert yet. I've never paid for SEO, and I've built my website myself because my website is kind of irrelevant. It's not irrelevant, but it's a credibility point, not a selling point. I do the selling through video. That's it.
Okay. Definitely, like, video is something that is an important part in any type of social media platform. And even LinkedIn have now started focusing it into a more broader way out there, the one that you mentioned. Like, they have also started rolling out with the Reels part, which was kind of on all the other platforms out there. But even LinkedIn also thought the importance of that, and because of that, they have introduced on their platform. So yeah, this is the right approach. And mainly, if LinkedIn is, like, generally we consider LinkedIn for LinkedIn is a go-to platform for any B2B business. So if we have to cater to the B2B business through the video, then LinkedIn is, one-way solution for all of this. Now, coming to the videos that you have been creating upon. So what are the key elements do you focus to make these LinkedIn videos more impactful and that help in building a good trust?
Usually when I start working with clients, the very first question that I get asked is, Paul, I've tried to talk about our business before and it's really hard to do, and I end up re-recording it over and over and over again, and I never end up releasing it. And my answer to them is because you're talking about the wrong things. You're trying to articulate in a 2-minute video your entire business, and that's impossible to do. More to the point, sadly, nobody cares. Nobody really cares about that 2 minutes until they're further down the funnel. Where you need to start with video content is creating that awareness that you're there. So you think about the customer buy-in journey. They need to know that you exist. They need to understand that you're an expert and agree that you're an expert. And then you help them with the decision-making process when they're at a point where they have a problem you can solve. And video really does help with all 3 of those aspects more than most other mediums. I think for me, the biggest challenge I see people miss out on is their ability to tell their own story, and they focus so much on being a mouthpiece for the brand and the business. And I think this goes back to corporate life. I had to get over this as well, was you're so used to being told what you can talk about, what you can't talk about, how you should say things, what your branding should be, or we don't share personal information because this is you're related to our business. We don't like people sharing. And all of these things are still in the back of our mind, holding us back from our true potential. But as a small to medium business, those things are your biggest strengths. Why did I get where I am? Who am I? Why do I do what I do? Why did I build a business to help people like you? Why do I care? All of those things, those emotions that are quite hard to articulate, but once we get into things, actually there's some real stories in there that are transformative for the people who want to know more about us. The other thing is focus and attention is at an all-time low. So a lot of business owners see, TikTok and Instagram and all that, like 60-second videos. Like, I don't believe 60-second videos are great for B2B, because I feel like the only 60-second videos that you really get out there don't educate, they don't add value, because you haven't had time. All you can leave people with is a thought, and a thought's great, but it doesn't really transform what you're doing day to day. So my big thing is 2 to 3 minute videos where you can set a question, answer it, and give some real value back. That's gold dust. But again, business owners try to go away and film a 2 to 3 minute video, and it's almost got to be scripted to do that well. So my advice to people is go away and use ChatGPT, use a language model to brainstorm some ideas. Have a theme that you want to talk about, something that's important to you, that you're passionate about, that relates to why you started your business. Take that theme and ask it for some talking points. What are the main talking points? That here's my client, here's who I'd like to work with. What do they care about within this theme? What questions would they like to see answered? And just have those bullet points on the screen and just start talking to a camera. a monologue, maybe invite a friend along to come and sit there, so it doesn't feel like it's just you talking to a screen, because that can be a bit it can make you quite anxious, right? So have somebody else there who maybe just delete their video out. They're not really there, they're just there for support, and talk through those talking points. And I guarantee after 5-10 minutes you'll start to relax, you'll start to settle into your zone, and the conversational points that you put out will be absolute gold dust. And within that, you will get your 2 to 3 minute or 60-second even video content. So to kind of draw a line under all that, Prince, is my idea is don't try and do the shorter videos. The shorter videos are repurposed from the longer video generally. When you gain more experience, then you can have a go at the 2 to 3 minute videos, but they are much harder and less efficient to do than the longer form video.
Now, since you have given advice on how one should be using videos out there, you have been repeatedly mentioning about having a short video, but there's also one thing that is about repurposing these videos, and it can also be used on different platforms. Like why should we be restricted just to LinkedIn also? So can you help the businesses understand that how they can maximize their reach by effectively repurposing the videos that they have created, might be from the podcast, might be from any video interview, and reproduce and repurpose it on different platforms also?
So I think this is the bit that people are aware of but are kind of scared to try for themselves, because it is quite a technical process, right? Unless you've got the right tools, it can seem very complicated and complex. And for those of you who've tried it, you probably also realise that it's a bit of a white rabbit hole, because it's very easy then to start being a bit more scattergun and trying to be everywhere at once rather than being targeted and focused. So my honest advice, having done both of these methods, right, I've gone broad and burnt myself out trying to be everywhere at once. I've gone super narrow and probably missed out on some opportunities to raise awareness in other social channels. And now kind of feel like I've got that balance about right. My advice would be identify 2 to 3 channels that you really want to be active on, that you think you will get revenue returns from. So my honest advice is, for most B2B companies, TikTok is great, but it's probably not going to drive revenue. It'll help raise awareness. You might get some good following from that, and some of those will start to spread word about your YouTube channel, which will have impact on the rest of things. But you're not going to drive revenue from it. So put TikTok to one side for 1 second. Instagram's probably very much the same, unless you've got a very visual business or service owners. Instagram, again, is probably quite hard to work on consistently other than for video. And start to bear down on where you think your clients actually are. So for most people, that's going to start with LinkedIn, right? And I would always follow that up with YouTube. And the reason I say YouTube is it's got a lot of misconceptions. People wrongly think that YouTube is about gamers streaming their games all the time, right? That's the massive use case for a lot of people. Multi-million-pound viral videos, brilliant. But for a business owner, it's your opportunity to curate your video list. So I always say to people, think about how you would take your customers on a journey with your videos, from awareness down to consideration, down to decision making. Turn those into playlists. And every time you create a video, make sure it fits in one of those playlists. Make sure it's a puzzle piece for your playlists. Whereas on LinkedIn, you post a video and it's gone. You know, it might hang around if you put it on your featured section, but it's up there, it has an impact, and then it disappears again. It's really hard to search. Whereas if you can direct people then to your YouTube or your website, for that matter, you can tell a story. Here's what video content repurposing is about. Here's why I'm an expert at what I do, and here's the sorts of problems that you're probably having that I can help you solve without you even coming to me. But when you have these problems, here's when you know that I'm the right person to work with, because I believe in X, Y, and Z, or I don't believe in X, Y, and Z. So YouTube's super powerful, second biggest search engine in the world, and whilst you might not get a lot of views on it, it's a great place to send people to help them work through that journey. In terms of repurposing your videos, so there are 3 main video formats, right? There is landscape, there is square, and there is portrait or vertical format. And I'm a big advocate for, if you're going to create video content, create it, and then have, there's lots of tools out there like Descript that I'm a big advocate for. I know Riverside has its own kind of repurposing platform behind the scenes now as well. Make sure that you create for yourself, for future use, a version in landscape, square and vertical, right? Film it like this in landscape, because that's how you can repurpose. If you film it in vertical, to get to landscape, you're going to have a really broad, fat head. And my head's horrible enough to start with, right? Like, nobody needs that full screen. It's horrible. So record in landscape, then you can repurpose to whatever format you want. And once upon a time, I used to tell people to stay away from the AI repurposing platforms, right? Hands on heart, they've gotten a lot better over time. They don't still do the sorts of things that I would do for my clients, but for somebody who's just starting out, who maybe has limited budget, a platform like Descript, Riverside, probably v.io, there's lots of other options out there. The AI understanding context now of what's being talked about in the video that it uses to turn those into shorter clips is much more advanced than it ever used to be. So my advice would be kind of use that to create half a dozen of each. Half a dozen landscape, half a dozen square, half a dozen portrait. And it could be the same clips, right? It doesn't need to be 18 clips. It could just be 6 clips and then repurpose the landscape, square and portrait. And that gives you the video format to go for any channel you want. In future use, whether you're at right now, you can experiment when you're ready to. But nail your main channels first. Get regular with them, get consistent with them, understand how your audience interact with it, and then expand one channel at a time, maybe every couple of months, until you've hit your limits as to what you want to work on. I'd also heavily advise for the channels that you're not massively focused on, where you're not going to drive revenue from. So TikTok, for me, I automate the scheduling of those posts, and I go on and check it maybe once a month, maybe every other month. I don't spend a lot of time looking at it. I've got enough to do as it is. And that's me, who's somebody who deals with repurposing all the time. For you as a business owner, it's a distraction. So by all means, there are some channels that you should be checking every day, like LinkedIn, where you might get direct messaging to say, yes, I'd love to work with you, I'd like to find out more, let's engage in the comments. All of those things are great. But for other channels like TikTok, get it automated, get it out there, and then leave it to do its thing. I did this recently with our business podcast, Market Pulse podcast that I run. I left it running and I went back and looked at it last week, and blew me away because we had 123,000 views, and I think we're up to now 19,000 likes on the channel. I've done nothing with it other than post the videos out. And last time I checked, we were getting less than 100 views per video. So it's absolutely blown me away that progress has happened in spite of me not even being active on it. So pick your battles, spend your energy wisely. But if you're creating content, create it for all your channels that you might use in the future, as well as what you use now, to save yourself the work in the future of having to go back and create more.
Perfectly. So when we follow a kind of similar kind of a strategy like when we do for our clients out there, because we know that video is a kind of, an important content that has to be done for. So like we do not go with a kind of, let's say, having a kind of 16, 17 clips out there, like the one you mentioned out there. Have 5 or 6 clips, but those clips should be the most prominent one. Those clips should be the hook to the complete video. So like if anyone sees that short videos, they should be excited to go and watch the entire video. So that is one strategy that we follow upon. The other one that you mentioned upon, definitely like what we even also do is we post like let's say if we have the short clips out there, we let's say if the client is going with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, might be on TikTok, or there are other platforms out there which they consider that it is prominent for their business, we keep on posting out there. We keep one platform as a primary. Like let's say if LinkedIn is my primary platform. For other platforms, what we'll be doing upon, we'll just maintaining our hygiene. So we are just posting it out there. And let's say in future there might be that Instagram performs well. There might be our videos are getting viral out there. Our audience are enjoying there. We are getting lots of comments out there. Might be we are getting response from Twitter. So this will help the audience or the clients also to understand that, okay, which platform can be their secondary, which they can target in the future, and they can get more potential. So
yeah. And also don't forget, I talk a lot about video, but video itself now, because we've got transcription through AI,
lends itself to creating other mediums as well. So video is great, it has its place, but especially for things like LinkedIn, right? Like a video post on its own isn't going to generate interest, it isn't going to generate engagement. It's the copy that goes with that video that's crucial to getting right. So I stand here, I'm not a copywriter. I write for some of my clients. I'm not a copywriter by trade. I enjoy it to an extent. But there's a whole other world of how do you create content and copy that accompanies the videos that creates intrigue and curiosity, to your point, to follow the call to action and watch the full video. Aside from that, you've also got things like, you know, when I first asked an AI to find quotes that I'd said during my conversation to create images with, I genuinely thought it would come back with one or two things and I wouldn't like them. I don't think I see anything particularly interesting when I talk on my videos. Right? There's a theme and there's advice out there. I don't think there's anything there that I would put in quote marks on a graphics. And yet when I ask AI to have a look at that transcript, it comes back with all of these things that I've apparently said. And I remember seeing them, but it didn't seem that important at the time. So it's actually that sentence there, that's really powerful. Did I say it? I actually said that? That's brilliant. So like then using that to create images, and you can animate those images, right? You have the quote animate onto the image through something like Canva. So there are lots of other then spin-off ways of using that content. And I'm a big fan of putting video at the top of your content funnel, right? If you record video first, you can use the outputs from that across all of your content for your business for the next month, 2 months. It all nice and themed, and you never need to record more. You never need to think of more topics to create because you've already got all the things that you need there. It's just about using that wisely, but that has the added bonus of looking really professional from the outside looking in, because you're talking about the same themes across the month and it's all connected together, and you can see that there's a plan there without having spent too much time on strategy, because I hate strategy as an ADHD business owner. I'm a doer. I like to get things done, off my plate, diary ticked off, jobs done. I don't like spending time thinking about what I'm going to be talking about this month.
Okay, so Paul, like while we were discussing, you had also mentioned the importance of AI. How do you think that AI has impacted your approach to video marketing? And if you can also help the audience, if there are some specific tools or the techniques that they can use to make the journey of video marketing a bit easier.
So I think there's two sides to AI, right? There's the dark side, and that everybody knows about, because we're all getting those really poor messages in our inbox. We're all getting those sales bots following us around on LinkedIn and trying to pretend that they're real people. Sorts of things where you'll comment back to someone, it takes them a whole month to reply to you because it's been sat on an auto campaign, nobody's paying attention. And then there's the powerful side of AI, where it can either take a base input and get it 80-85% of the way there, maybe a bit more with tweaking, or it can take something that is already 30 or 40% and get it to the finished article. And I use AI pretty much in everything that I do, right? I couldn't do what I do now for all of my clients without AI. It allows me it augments my capabilities, right? So with the right prompts, with the right tools, with the right workflows, the right integrations, I can do the job of a small agency as a single person, right? It's now me and my wife, so we're both using it together. We can probably do 10 people's work between us in a week. So one, that makes me really happy, because it means I'm always busy doing new things. I'm not spending ages doing the really repetitive things, but also it keeps clients happy because we can turn their work around really fast without charging them a fortune. And I think that's the challenge for a lot of agencies out there, is it becomes a body shop. As a business owner, I think AI can be a shiny object for a lot of people, right? None of us really, apart from me, who's involved in this as a business, right? Most business owners don't want to spend too much time working on their marketing. You've got a million other things to do. You've got finance, you've got invoices, you've got client success, you've got delivery for clients, you've got reports to write, all these investment, lots and lots of different strings pulling on you. The last thing you want to do is spend time on your marketing. So the temptation is to go with fully automating it. and I stand against that completely, because it has such a big impact on the way you're perceived. It's obvious to any of us who use AI in any professional context. I can spot an AI comment on LinkedIn a mile away. I can spot an AI generated blog a mile away, and I can spot an AI LinkedIn post a mile away. They're damaging your brand, so stop doing it. I think in terms of using AI for a brand, for a business page, that's fine. Like, it's always got to be in the same tone of voice. It's not a business telling you a personal story. I can get away with that use case. That's fine. And especially on LinkedIn, it's limited value for that anyway, because nobody really interacts with business pages. How do I use AI? So I try and incorporate AI into everything that I do. Any repetitive task that I do, I try and find a way to automate it or use AI to replace that step, so that I can get back to being what I'm most valuable for, which is the thinking side of things, and thinking outside the box, catching errors, dealing with them, and making sure that the final output for a client is processed and polished. And I'm sure that's what everybody sat listening to this also feels the same, right? It's also about learning to use the tools that you've got. So Descript, as an example, it's incredibly powerful now. They're being invested in by OpenAI some years ago now, and they're really starting to showcase their capabilities in their AI potential in there. So it's a really, really powerful tool. It can create highlight reels, and honestly, the highlight reels are brilliant. It can create social media reels. It can create descriptions for YouTube. It can do all of these things, largely unassisted. But here's the key point that I think for AI, is the more specific you can be about what you want out of it, the better the results you'll get. So train it on examples of things that you really like. So if you see somebody's LinkedIn post, you think that's brilliant, I want to write like that every day. Copy and paste that into the platform and tell it to learn from that. Use it in its own way, apply your spin to it, but to use that as a basis for how to be good. My second bit of advice is to iterate on those prompts. So it is about learning how different ways of phrasing things to the AI can help you better, even within Descript, right? So it's got an AI prompt writing section. You can ask it to do different things with the chapters and the transcript that you've got there. But over time, I've gotten better with my prompts. My prompts have evolved. They're a lot longer now than they used to be, but I started short. Start short, add things on, see what impact it has. And if it's the right impact, keep it for next time. Which brings me back to the next point, which is keep a log of your prompts, because eventually the AI will get lost off from what it's doing. I don't know whether it's a memory thing, like it's gone through all its memory and my original prompt's now lost and it's gone, or they've tweaked something in the platform and it's not working the way it was and it needs refreshing. But keep a copy of those prompts, and every time you give it a new addition to that prompt, add it onto your repository, so that I know I can go back and I have a prompt that beats the standard version of creating chapters within my long form videos, right? So I'll ask it to go and create titles for them for YouTube, and I've got a version that is better than the default version that comes with the app, so I use mine. It is about finding how you can leverage that AI to get you closer to the finished result, so that you spend less time on the outputs. It doesn't mean that you can just plug AI in, send it the inputs, take the outputs and throw them into the ether. It means you're closer to being able to throw it into the ether. You maybe just need 5 minutes worth of top-up work on the top to make it yours, to make it stand out and differentiate yourself from the crowd. But again, now it's easy to stand out from the crowd by not using AI in that way.
Okay, so Paul, like you have already given out of advices out there. Any last piece of advice that you would like to give to the audiences?
I think there are a lot of people out there that procrastinate on doing video content because it's uncomfortable. Right, I've been doing this 6 years. I have over 750, probably more like 850 hours of footage on one of my YouTube channels alone, right? It's a lot of content out there. I still hate seeing myself on camera. I still hate editing my videos. I still hate the sound of my voice, but I've proved time and time again that it drives business for me, so I keep doing it. It doesn't matter that it makes me uncomfortable, right? If we all did the things that made us comfortable, none of us would have started a business, would all be working in a corporate job or a very simple manual labour job and not doing what we're doing now. You've done the hard bit. You've started your own business. You've identified who you want to reach. You have a product or a service or whatever. Be brave enough to get out on video. Stop procrastinating. Stop using it as an excuse that you don't like seeing yourself on video, and just admit that it makes you uncomfortable. That's okay. That's cool. That's where we learn. That's the learning zone, right? It's a fear. It's fine. Get it out there. Post it. See what the response is. And it's probably going to be none to start with, right? Bear with it. Have faith that it will work in the long run. And I promise you, if you keep that up for 6 months, 7 months, you'll start to see solid results in your business revenue, and you can thank me later.
Perfectly, very rightly said. And that is the key. Like, if anyone have to success, then this is the only thing that they have to do upon. It's go with the marketing, go with the personal branding on LinkedIn. So, this was an enlightening session. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise on leveraging videos for personal branding. Your insights have given us a lot to think about. To our listeners, we hope you found today's conversation as engaging and informative as we did. If you would like to connect with Paul or learn more about Javelin Content Management, don't hesitate to check out their website and follow the Paul's work. Thank you once again, Paul, for being on the show. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.